Hey guys, it's the exam coach checking in with you. It's currently late at night and I'm up podcasting. I've got a bottle of liquid thinking next to me and it's pretty quiet. No one's up. So I'm going to deliver to you a review of the ebook PDF that I have on my website about how to crush the new GCSE 10 simple steps. And I'm going to review it, add a bit of lib here and there, give a bit of context, a bit of colour, and I hope that it will just be a nice refresher of the key things you need to be focusing on if you're doing your new GCSE this year. So, for context, if you're doing GCSE, you should know this. The GCSE has changed recently from a different grading system. It's gone from letters, so A to U, to numbers, 9 to 1. And there's a few other things that's happened with them. So with this, they've become harder. So for example, the 9 is supposedly equivalent to A star star or double A star. And there's obviously more numbers than there are or than there were letters, meaning there's a higher degree of measurability and differentiation between pupils, which means that obviously there's going to be a larger range. So the highest performing students and the lowest performing students are going to be further away from each other on the scale of grades. The other thing about this new GCSE is it's entirely exam focused. Now, this is interesting for me because personally at school, I was always better at exams. I was good at performing at exams. I knew how to do them. I was very good at keeping myself calm, level-headed, thinking clearly. And there was a lot of people who throughout the school year would do a lot better than me. But the moment we hit that exam room, I'd always come out on top just because I had that technique. I understood what was needed, how I needed to put things in order to get the examiner to mark it right, how to almost game the system. In that, I'll give you a quick example. I could never answer the 5 marker, or it was sometimes a 10 marker, I think. It was a 5 marker actually, on the end of a GCSE maths paper. I just couldn't get it right. I tried so hard to figure out how to get them right, and it would take me ages. And in an exam situation, I just didn't have ages. I had 2 hours, I think. And by the time I got to the last question, I'd leave myself maybe 15 minutes, but it would take me about 7 minutes to do it. And then I'd need 7 to check through all my answers. In fact, 10 really, because maths was always one where I was making careless errors. And I'd never get it right. So what I did is I knew how to hack 3 marks out of that 5 mark question, and I'd do it every time. I'd just show my workings. I'd show that I understand the steps, I understand the theory. Just with this set of numbers and this particular question, I didn't get the right answer. Cool, but I got 3 out of 5. So cheers. That's my marks. I'm taking them. Thank you very much. And I got an A star in GCSE maths. It was my weakest subject by far, but managed to get it in the bag by hacking the system and being good at keeping a level head, pacing yourself throughout the exam. So, for me, I was better at exams, but I did coursework, remember? I had stuff to do during the year that could contribute to that end grade. Very, very useful to have that because anytime you're spacing your work out, it's a bit like, think about it like a stock market or buying and trading stocks and shares. Spreading your risk is a very effective way to nullify the chance that you lose, essentially, because if a few of your stocks go down in price, if you've differentiated your stocks, you are likely to have one that perhaps goes up a bit and then balances out your profit and loss at the end of it. In the same way, if you're putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, with just doing an exam at the end of the year or a set of exams, and they don't go too well for you either because, I don't know, it just be the period of time. It could be that you didn't revise properly, you were unprepared, you just didn't perform for whatever reason, the risk is very concentrated to those period of exams. Whereas with coursework, obviously it's spaced out throughout the year. You've got the exams at the end of the year as well. You've got a nice diversified period of time there to slowly kind of stock up the marks. But the punchline is with these new GCSEs, they are entirely exam focused, and it's a big challenge. And it's part of the reason why I'm so focused on GCSE this year and into the future as well, as long as these exams continue to exist, is because you need to figure out a way of being able to plow through 20 to 30 exams that are difficult, that are harder than what they used to be. And furthermore, I'm just looking at the next bullet point here on the ebook is there's less opportunity to resit them. So I think when you pop open the government fact sheet that I've actually attached on the ebook or linked to it, it says resit opportunities will only be available each November in English language and maths. So really it's exams in their purest form that you get one shot, Eminem, lose yourself kind of vibe. That's it. You get one shot, you got to smash it. And really figuring out when you're going to do your revision, how you're going to pace up to it effectively, the most effective revision techniques to really get you remembering this stuff, and then the exam routine, the performance aspect of it, which I love. The idea that it's for the big game players who have their exam routine down, can keep themselves calm, cool, calm, collected. Teacup, I like to call it as well. It's something that Clive Woodward used to kind of coach and mentor the Rugby World Cup winning team of 2003. And Teacup is an acronym, and it stands for Thinking Clearly Under Pressure, or Think Clearly Under Pressure. And he said, in his review of the 2003 World Cup winning team, Rugby World Cup winning team, England, is when Johnny Wilkinson pinged a drop goal. Cracking strike. I remember watching that, actually. I had to go into school that day because I was going to Saturday school when I was, how old was I? I must have been 11ish, 12ish. And what a strike from that man. Absolutely stunning. I've got a clear picture of it in my head now. Cracking stuff. And where was I? Clive Woodward. Teacup. That's what you want to do. Thinking clearly under pressure. It's the way that he differentiated an average team to the truly great teams. It's when they're in those pressure moments, when they really need to make the score, how do they actually respond to that? And that's what your exam performance is going to be about a lot. You're going to get chucked crap questions. You're going to get chucked stuff that throws you off guard. You're going to get paper, for example, history. I remember I had loads of questions, especially at my university exams. I don't know why. Maybe I played it bad, but for some reason, a lot of the exams I did, questions that weren't ideal in the slot. When you just get a question on the exam and you're just like, I'm going to nail this because I prepared for it fully. It's almost verbatim the question that I was revising just before I got into the exam, and I'm going to smash it. For my university exams, none of it was like that. I think at least two of my final exams, both questions on the paper were ones that if I'd been asked the question before the exam, would you like these questions to come up? It would be no. And the ones that I would want to come up didn't come up. So, you just take it rough with the smooth. But I had a plan in place to deal with the tough questions. And also, there was stories of, people crying in my exam. It was actually that bad at uni. and the fact that, some people just lose their heads, and I don't blame them. Like, it's a stressful, pressurized situation. But you have to figure out methods and strategies to cope with that. Whether it is, Tiger Woods-esque. I read something about Tiger that whenever he hits a shot, no matter whether it's good or bad, the next 10 steps he takes, he counts out 10 seconds, and that shot is forgotten. He's on to the next one. And, whether that's, I don't know whether he has actually gone into great detail on his inner game, seeing as he's still actually in the sport, and I imagine that's something that he would not fully kind of unravel until he retired. But really interesting. I think that's a great technique anyway. 10 steps forward, you forget the last shot, and you're just on a clean slate. Obviously, it's difficult to do, but with practice, I'm sure it's possible to actually just get as clear as possible on how you're going to play that next golf shot into the greens. And with the exam, it's the same. You can apply that, in fact, to a poor exam or a good exam in a set of exams, meaning you don't let a poor exam performance actually get on top of you and make you perform poorly in your next 3 to 4 exams. You just forget about it and off you go. Anyway, I digress. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some of these the key things that you need to think about when you're taking GCSE exams. So, the first thing that I mention in this ebook is you need to become awesome at taking exams. I already talked about it a little bit, but it's so important to realize that they're a learned skill. You can get better at these things. It's not just some people are good, some people are bad. Some people are more perhaps adept at doing exams, and I had to learn this the tough way. When I was a kid, I was not reading books. I was not very studious. I don't come from a very academic family. In fact, I'm the first. Well, I think my mum went to a college kind of thing, but not a uni. I went to Exeter University, a proper uni, first one for my family to do that. Education and academia really isn't a thing that runs in my family. So when I was growing up, I wasn't reading books. I think my first book that I read was Harry Potter. I was 13, The Philosopher's Stone. I count that as my first book because it was over 100 pages. All the other stuff was that Biff chip stuff that you get when you're 6 or 4 or however old you are. And with those even, I remember I was quite sneaky actually. I would try and turn, like the pages would stick together a bit, and I'd try and turn a double page so I didn't have to read as much because I just wanted to, when you go and we had to stand near the teacher's desk and start reading, and I just hated it. And I wasn't very good at it either because I just didn't read. I was playing things like WWE, SmackDown, and just footy, and was outside, watched a lot of cartoons, that kind of upbringing. And I thought I loved it. It was cracking. But when I look back and reflect on it, I can see how there would have been some kids who, instead of WWE SmackDown on the on the PlayStation, which was superb, thoroughly enjoyable game, and instead of that, they would have had an abacus. They would have been readings, or they would have been maybe watching some more kind of educational cartoons, apart from Futurama and The Simpsons. Or what else did I watch? I seem to remember I watched a lot of That's So Raven and Lizzie McGuire, although they are quite yeah. I don't know if blokes were meant to be watching that, but I was, so never mind. It was great. I enjoyed it. So really, the point I'm trying to make there is everybody starts from different stages in terms of their ability to do well in exams. And you just need to accept whatever you've done in the past that has amounted to who you are, how capable you are doing these exams. You've just either got to put the legwork in and speed things up a bit and put the legwork in now to get better at exams. Or if you're already in a good spot, know that, hey, you've done some good work. Let's try and improve some more. So think about that. The other thing is the ability to pass exams is needed in later life. It just is. I'm going out on the weekends occasionally. Well, at the moment I'm just grinding on the exam coach, but when I was working in London, and I'd go out for drinks quite a bit with pals and friends and people that I've known through work, school, everything, they're still taking exams. I mean, I was working in advertising, but finance, law, health, construction even, you're taking exams well into your 20s. And also, if you want to get some category of job, you need qualifications to do that. And the only thing that this system that we live in that we have at the moment is exams. Like you have to do exams. You have to do something that shows you are proficient in this. And figuring out how to do these things, how to prepare effectively, the best ways to remember things and really make sense of information and learn is a phenomenal skill that you will use. It will pay itself back time and again when you need to get it is jumping through hoops to a certain extent. It doesn't involve much creativity. I was in advertising. It's one of the most creative industries out there, and yeah, the exams weren't the be all and end all in advertising at all. But I'd say that's the exception in the marketplace. Being a very creative industry for many, many, many other industries, you need to be able to jump through hoops and be able to show that you can follow a structured program and deliver. And then, yeah, the creativity of thinking a bit entrepreneurially, thinking a little bit outside the box, obviously comes into play once you get the job. But there's other ways to develop that outside of an exam context. For example, through your hobbies, your passions, your side projects. You can easily develop creativity in that way and push your thinking. So exams, they're needed for the future. The other thing is they build transferable skills. This is a massive thing that I think people miss out on is even if you don't want to choose from any of the careers I've just listed. So I'd call these the fancy careers. They were things that I was always thinking about: the finance, the law, health, commerce, construction, governance, things like that, where they're considered for the high flyers, the smart people, the cream of the crop go there. And it was definitely something that I was looking at. I was seriously looking at law when I was about 16. I did 3 work experience placements in the space of a summer when I was 16. I was very lucky to get them. And it was a fantastic experience. I'll talk a little bit more about them in another podcast. But moving on, I want to make sure that even if you're not interested in those careers, you need to recognize that even if you want to become, like, for example, let's think of something completely the other side of the spectrum to the career options I just mentioned. So perhaps a musician, an artist, a rapper, an Olympic weightlifting champion, just something completely different. Exams help you develop skills that can be applied to pretty much anything. So, for example, they help you to develop the strong routines that are needed to achieve any kind of goal. They help you manage your time, and they help you figure out, okay, if I want to get stuff done, I need to compartmentalize my time more. They help you organize your thoughts and the way you're going to go about things. They help you develop systems to actually stay calm in pressurized situations and have a bit of perspective. Think about it holistically and actually for what it is. It's just an exam. It's not the be all and end all. But yeah, it does help if you do well. And being able to kind of, I'm using a bit of a Gary Vaynerchukism here, who's obviously I work for him at VaynerMedia, so some of his sayings did rub off on me. And one that I particularly liked was this idea of pulling from both directions. So if to me, it meant being both things. So you could be really, really confident and bold, and then at the same time, you could be very humble and modest. And it's knowing when to turn each of them on. And in the same way, when you look at an exam, it's that ability to see it from both sides of the spectrum, in that, wow, this is important. I need this in order to access new opportunity that I want to take and I want to use to get myself to where I want to be in life and give back what I want to give back. On the other hand, I don't care. I don't care if this doesn't happen because I know I'm going to find a new path. I don't care if I fail this exam because it's just an exam. It doesn't mean much. It's not the be all and end all. It's just a piece of paper that I've got to answer, and I'm not going to let it kind of bring me down or dictate where I end up in life or how good I feel about myself. So you can see how that's put to play there, and it's a really, really important thing to have in mind. It can really help you relieve a lot of pressure from yourself and just be able to think clearly. Okay, so let's talk about the second thing I mentioned: planning effectively for the year. It's so crucial because all of the GCSE exams take place at the end of the year, meaning you can easily just coast in this year, guys. If you're in year 11 now, you could easily just do nothing until April, but you'll be in an absolute spot when you get there because it's just going to jump up on you. It's going to creep up on you. Well, it's just going to come down like a tidal wave, rather, if you haven't done the legwork, and you're not going to be able to recover. It's as simple as that. There's just too much. I've had a look at these syllabuses and the papers. If you don't put in the work throughout the course of the year, the bricklaying, brick by brick, brick by brick. I use that a lot, don't I? It is a fantastic analogy by Will Smith, I think, in terms of how you build that wall of success by just laying one brick perfectly each day, not seeing it as this huge task, just seeing it as a series of small tasks, which translates to this approach of throughout the GCSE year, you need to be chipping away, making sure you're staying up to date with notes, making sure you're understanding things as you go, as opposed to just doing all your revision in one hit and then having to re-understand everything that you didn't understand in class because you were daydreaming or just didn't understand it and the class moved on. So important to think about all these things. The other thing I'd say is you want to, especially during the mock exam season, which the time I'm publishing this podcast, I know that a lot of you may be taking mock exams. You got to get your fundamentals nailed during those mock exams, understanding the core stuff in each subject, just the absolute bread and butter. Like if someone random asked you, what are you learning in English? You'd need to be able to tell them about, for example, the key characters, the key themes, the key things you've been looking at in the text you're studying in English language or English literature. That kind of stuff is just crucial. Knowing your bread and butter. For example, there were some people that I was at school with who genuinely 2 to 3 weeks before the exam would ask a question which I would seriously question whether they had actually attended any classes the whole year, because the question was that essential and fundamental to the whole syllabus that it made them, or put them in a very difficult position to actually achieve anything in the exam, because they didn't understand the kind of bedrock of what you need in order to unlock or understand the rest of the syllabus. Crucial that you understand as you go, guys, and understand the fundamentals. The next thing is the detail. I think a lot of students get bogged down in it because it's obvious that in order to get the top banded grades, you need to have the most detail. You need to really understand the nuances. Often it's things like evaluation or a level of knowledge which just goes into a bit more specificity about whatever you're talking about, that gets the 8 and 9 in GCSE. And the important thing to note there is that can be learned at a later stage. The fundamentals should be prioritized, making sure that the 70% of marks that are going to be awarded in the paper you can get. Then we can work on the next 30. Don't try and do what I saw some people do, which is they forget to learn the basics and then they go straight to the detail, and it's strange how this works. I genuinely think it was because in the classroom conversations, they would appear smart. Almost ego, almost them wanting to actually appear as if they knew stuff. And I'm just guessing this from the way I sometimes thought, was I liked it when I said something smart. Like I liked the kind of appraisal from other people, like, wow, this is good. Or the teacher, for example. That kind of thinking of actually just wanting to display like higher level knowledge just for the sake of wanting to display it, or the external affirmation from other people is really important to try and avoid. You want to focus on the basics, make sure you got them solid, and then you can remember the fancy stuff as well, but just don't go straight to the fancy stuff just so you can kind of appear as if you know stuff. Exams aren't about appearing as if you know stuff, being able to talk a good game when you put your hand up in class and rattle off some facts. It's about being able to deliver the substance in the exam room. At the end of the day, there's a mark on your paper, and that's what matters, and that's what you've got to be focusing on, not whether you can just spout off some higher level, like niche stuff that really isn't going to get you much marks in the exam. Okay, paying attention in class. So underestimated and undervalued. You just need to do it. And if there's techniques to help you, I remember sometimes I would actually even on my folders just put little sticky notes, and they wouldn't have pay attention because I was too embarrassed if someone asked me, why have you got that on your folder, kind of thing. That would be pretty embarrassing, so I didn't do that. I put sticky notes on there, and I put like exclamation marks or something, or I put like some symbol that would remind me to pay attention. And I'd kind of anchor that symbol before the week started, and then I'd sticky note my folders, and when I put them down in the lesson, I'd see them obviously because they were on the front cover of my book whenever I opened the books up, and it would just be that little jog of, come on, in when you were in a level-headed mindset at the beginning of this week, you wanted to pay attention. So now that you're in the classroom, just crack on, like listen to the teacher when they're saying stuff. Don't be tempted to talk or pass notes or just muck around, because I've done plenty of that and I know what it's like. It's okay. It's easy to do. But really, I wanted to hold myself to a high standard. I was saying, look, you're going to put these sticky notes on your books and you're going to make it happen. You're going to apply yourself and actually try and do something, as opposed to just taking the easy route the whole time and kind of trying to play the class clown, maybe sticking with the crowd a bit, just following everyone else, not doing your own thing. And that's an important thing to think about. Are you maybe playing up to the crowd a bit? Are you not applying yourself as much as you know you can? Are you looking forward to, or do you still want to see what you're capable of? And if you do, write down or figure out a way to make yourself pay more attention in class. Is it sitting near the front? You know, what look at the options here. There's sitting at the front of the class versus sitting at the back. Sitting at the front's going to obviously allow you to pay more attention. You're going to hear the teacher more clearly. Really doesn't matter who you sit next to in class that much, if you're not going to be talking to them and chatting. No, it doesn't. So, make the decisions to invest your time in the classroom. And outside the classroom, double down on those relationships that perhaps you would have invested in whilst you're in the class previously by chit-chatting or gossiping or whatever you do. I certainly did it. And change the way you approach your relationships a bit. You'll find that actually you can keep everything balanced and in check. It's just about making that initial decision to do this. The other thing you want to do is create a winning environment. So by this I mean really figuring out where you're going to do the majority of your studying and getting that place clear of stuff so you can just work when you need to. And this could be subject to a bit of interpretation. So for example, you could just have your desk in your room, for example, and work there. But if you want to mix it up a bit, I often did this and mixed up my locations a bit just to keep things fresh. You could have a little space in the living room. You could have a space in the library, a little space in your room. All this kind of stuff, but just knowing and being deliberate about, when I'm sitting here, I get work done. I hit the desk, I hit the books, I get stuff done. And the other thing is making sure that you do things that just generally keep you in good check. So there's a really good graduation speech video by I think he's an American Navy SEAL commander, and he talks about making your bed. It's a very popular video on YouTube, but it's linked in the ebook. And just getting those simple tasks right, such as making your bed. The bed's made, it's the first task of the day, successfully done. And no matter what, no matter how the day goes, you've got a made bed to go back to. So you can get some rest, you can recharge, and you can go at it again. Things like that just keep you going, keep you moving forward. The other thing that I'd mentioned, just from my advertising background and the way I see things there, making sure the stuff around you is positive, that it's not dragging you down, that it's not negative or doesn't really encourage you to work hard. There's so many things out there that can discourage you from doing things. They come on your mobile, they come on posters on the wall, whatever. But there's also a hell of a lot of things that can encourage you to do amazing things on your mobile, posters on the wall, whatever it may be. Just make sure they're good, and you can control that. You can control where your eyes go. You can control what you tap and what you click on. So do that and focus on it, and make it so that it actually lifts you up and makes you better. So for this podcast, I'm going to wrap it up because we're getting, I think, around the half-hour mark, and I want to keep it around there. So I will continue with the next 5 points on another podcast I'm checking out.